The Rock Star's Virginity. Book 3 in the Romance Island Resort series. Written by Demelza Carlton. Autonarrated by AI Chris from Google. 1. Only 6 weeks left until you get your happily ever after. Better get that ass in perfect shape so that hot man of yours won't be able to keep his hands off it. By the time I'm done with you, he'll be begging to spank you. Come do cardio on the treadmills with me, Violet insisted, tugging on Flavia's towel-laden arm. Pilates works your core, but you'll need stamina for your wedding night. You and James can thank me later. No spanking and definitely no kink allowed at my wedding night. Flavia snorted. And my stamina's just fine. I spent over an hour chasing Mum's new stupid horse through the bush paddock yesterday. I've told Dad to get higher fences to keep him in, but until he does, the minute something spooks him, he's up and over the fence, and I have to catch him before he runs onto the road or something. I'll talk to you while I do my stretches, but then I have to go to the hairdressers to book an appointment for my trial. I told them my hair won't curl, but David says otherwise. You aren't married yet? What's taking so long? Teased Robbie the personal trainer as he wandered past. When's your bachelorette party? I heard you were looking for a stripper. Violet laughed. I wanted one, but you're out of luck. Flavia won't have any strippers at her hen's night. Besides, we're leaving the country. We're having a week in Bali, just the bride and her bridesmaids. Cocktails by the beach, daily massages, the works. She winked at Flavia. Our expert travel agent here knows all the best places and what to do where. Robbie didn't seem to be listening. I bet her boyfriend will have strippers at his bachelor party. If the best man doesn't book strippers, he's not doing his job properly. Of course, sometimes he does his job too well. Check out this guy. He organized his mate's bucks night, but he didn't get a stripper. Robbie whipped out his phone and swiped at the screen until he appeared satisfied. Here he is. This guy hired a prostitute for his mate's bucks night, then got him so drunk that he passed out before he could enjoy his gift. So the best man, taking his role very seriously in the most traditional way, stood in for the groom and gave it to her instead. He held out his phone for the girls to see. Violet squinted at the screen. Bit blurry. You can't see much. Flavia leaned over and nodded in agreement. She could just make out the couple, one with enormous boobs and the other looked vaguely male. He wore a watch that looked a little like the one she'd bought James. Robbie swiped the screen. How about now? He was really banging her. Flavia's heart stopped. The sordid shot showed far more than she wanted to see. A girl with too much makeup and a fake grin plastered on her face bent over someone's dining table, while a man who looked frighteningly like James plowed into her from behind. It couldn't be, surely it was just a coincidence. Some other bloke who just looked like James. James had been on a pub crawl with his mates on Saturday, not a bucks night. It couldn't be him, and if she only looked harder, she'd see that. Do her, mate? Just like you'll do your hot little V on your wedding night, one of the onlookers slurred. Hot little V? Flavia stared at the screen, unable to look away. She recognized the watch he wore. His favorite pub crawl t-shirt, the one with a sozzled frog on the front, wrinkling with every thrust. When he pulled back, she glimpsed that mole beside his treasure trail that no one but she had ever seen. That's disgusting. I can't believe you filmed a couple having sex, Violet snapped. Robbie shrugged, his eyes still firmly turned toward the screen. Wasn't me. Someone stuck this up on the internet and I only saw it when someone showed Davo what he might have missed out on, drinking too much on his bucks night. Violet's cheeks turned an angry shade of pink. Whatever. Put it away, Robbie. Flavia couldn't think. Couldn't speak. How could James? She found herself standing outside in the rain, with no memory of leaving the building, as Violet thrust her gym bag at her. Are you all right? Violet asked. You never forget your stuff. You're misorganized. No one else could have handled that last ash cloud nightmare the way you did when your manager was away and earned Rookie of the Year at the National Travel Industry Awards. 50 stranded exchange students all home in time for the start of term. They created the category for you. Your wedding is going to be the best planned event since the last royal wedding. Flavia laughed bitterly. Even if the groom's been banging prostitutes behind my back while promising he'll save himself for marriage, like I am? Violet's eyebrows flew up into her fringe. James? I don't believe it. I know that picture looked a little bit like him, sure, but it couldn't be him. He has a doppelganger who wears the same shirt and watch and has an identical birthmark to James? Flavia's voice shook. It's him. I'd know him anywhere vi. Violet grabbed Flavia's shoulders and looked deep into her soul, even if the view was blurred by the bride-to-be's rapidly multiplying tears. If it is James, and I'm not saying it is, seeing as I didn't get a very good look at Robbie's phone and it was a bad picture anyway, what are you going to do? I don't know. Call off the wedding, call the police. Can you get arrested for sleeping with a prostitute? I know it's illegal in America. Go over to his house, key the paintwork on his car and slash all the upholstery, then drive it into the river. No, first I'm going to get laid. Then I'm going to tell him I'm not a virgin anymore before I trash his precious baby. Flavia let out a shaky laugh. Listen to me, I'm so angry I'm trying to plan Grand Theft Auto and I can't even do that right. Okay, first, prostitution isn't illegal in Australia. Not for the girls who do it or the guys who pay them. Murder is illegal though, and so's damaging his car. So no police and no cutting. Violet took a deep breath. I want you to go straight home. If you want to steal cars, I'll borrow one of my brother's computer games and you can play that all night if you like. If you're seriously looking to get laid, promise me you'll wait for the weekend, or at least until you've talked to James. Promise me, girl. Violet's eyes pinned her. Flavia sighed. All right, I promise. It's not like I'd know how to pick up a guy anyway. It feels like James and First have been together forever. Now, I don't know what to do. You and James will work this out, you'll see. Now home, dinner, distraction, then bed. In that order. Flavia nodded numbly. How could anyone work out a future this shattered? One thing she knew for sure, when she did come up with a plan, it would be all about revenge. No one ripped her heart out and got away with it unscathed. Not even James. 2. What do you say to a man who's just lost his wife? For the first time in her life, Zan didn't know what to do. So she stood at the head of the Penguin jetty, a bottle of rum dangling from her hand, as she stared at the forlorn figure sitting on the end. Finally she said, I brought you something. You don't even like me. What are you doing here? Jay asked over his shoulder, not looking at Zan. His gaze was fixed on the horizon and the incoming tide, which would soon turn the precipitous drop at his feet into gently lapping waves. He wasn't seriously considering jumping, was he? Zan marched along the jetty. Truce, please. I swear. I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. No, this was exactly what she'd wish on that faithless wanker, Jerome. Okay, well maybe him but not you. I believed that girl was everything she said she was, same as you. I keep thinking it's some sort of horrible mistake. A case of mistaken identity or something. Are you sure that she really? What? That she's a triple murderer who killed not only her husband but 2 backpackers too. A black widow, my sister tells me, who confessed to her crimes the moment she saw the police. And I was her next target. Luckily for me, Fung's husband isn't dead, so she's not even really my wife. She's still going to be represented by my legal team though. The band's lawyers and PR people cut a deal with her. If she keeps me out of all the proceedings and pleads guilty to everything she did, we'll pay for her legal fees through the whole court case. And no further contact with me ever. She didn't even hesitate. Fuck. He grabbed the bottle from Zan's hand, wrenched off the cap and gulped the contents. A week ago, I was happily married to a woman I loved, or at least I thought I did. Now my sister says I didn't really know her at all. A murderer, and everything we had together was fucking fiction. I thought she was genuinely traumatized, and now I'm supposed to believe it was all a lie? Fuck. He took another swig from the rum bottle. Your sister, Jo, she called and asked me to remind you that your security specialist advises against any further contact with Fung. Any contact will mean she has to foot her own legal bills. Zan sat on the boards, dangling her legs over the side of the jetty. You know, I was as taken in by her as you were. I thought she was for real too. But if she's that good an actress, then maybe it's all part of the act to lull you into a false sense of security before she, well, does her thing. It doesn't matter how many times I hear it, I still don't believe it. You know she asked to see me before the police took her away? 5 minutes and she'd never bother me again, she said. They told her I'd said no, but they never fucking told me until after she flew away. She was so calm until they loaded her into the helicopter. Then she started screaming about how she'd never intended to hurt me. Her husband had deserved everything he got and she'd do it all again, but not to me. Never to me. Fuck knows what's true anymore. I don't. You know how she tried to kill her last husband? Jay offered her the rum. Zan squinted down the neck of the bottle, wondering what diseases Jay had, then decided she didn't care right now. She drank. Burned sugar blazed down her throat. Jay continued, she tried to make it look like an accident. The poor bastard's allergic to peanuts, so she poisoned him with peanut oil. It would have worked too if she hadn't left him. When he discovered she was gone, he called the police, and while he was on the emergency hotline he went into anaphylactic shock. If she'd stayed with him for another half hour he'd be dead, but she ran like she panicked. She must have driven for days without sleep to get here in the time she did. Makes me think she was right and the bastard did deserve whatever he got. Jay's fist pounded the boards. I don't care what anyone says. I know what I saw. The fear in her eyes was real. Just like the look in Angel's eyes. You can't fake that. So what are you going to do? The moment the words were out of her mouth, Zan regretted them. What could he do? Jay's lips lifted in a mirthless grin. Do what she wants. Give her the best lawyers money can buy and hope they can help her. And stay away from her because that's what she wants. Wouldn't be the first time a rape survivor threatened me with death or permanent injury. I should be used to it by now. But even if everything's true, I could never trust her again because in the back of my mind I'll always wonder. He snatched back the bottle and chugged it, then wiped his mouth on the back of his hand. I don't want to die. There's shit I haven't done yet. Like get married, seeing as the first time didn't count. Zan's heart breathed a sigh of relief. She'd done her bit and talked him off the proverbial ledge, even if his backside hadn't budged. Now she could go back to disliking him as wholeheartedly as before. Maybe next time you should try finding a girl who isn't married and hasn't killed anyone, or at least ask her first. Jay snorted. When she could lie? I'd need a fucking virgin. Even then, she still might be a murderer. Zan shrugged. Love's always a gamble. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Yes, Jay had had monumentally bad luck lately, but he'd still come out on top. Damn it, why couldn't it be her turn to win for once? She wished Jay good night and headed for the hotel manager's house on the other side of the lagoon. Tonight she'd cook her own dinner. She didn't feel cheerful enough to brave the staff dining room with her heart so heavy. Maybe she'd break out some more of that rum for herself, because the little nagging voice in her head insisted that if someone with all Jay's rockstar charms couldn't be lucky in love, what hope did she have in finding a happily ever after? 3. Morning V. How are your plans for the perfect wedding coming? James' half-asleep morning voice sounded sexier than it had any right to. Especially when she was mad at him. Fine, Flavia lied. What else could she answer? It wasn't like she could say she'd seen a video of him having sex with a prostitute, so she hadn't done a thing about their wedding. She'd been too busy exploring options for revenge. True to her promise to Violet, she hadn't yet decided on a plan. She'd waited all week until she felt her fury had simmered down enough for her to be civil on the phone. Only now could she say calmly, "Are you coming up today?" I really want to see you. Or I miss you too, V. No can do. I have to go to the auto auction today. There's a few clapped-out classics the boss wants me to keep an eye out for, ones that were stolen and trashed. He figures they'll go for a steal and we can use the parts for our other clients. The passion in James' voice was unmistakable. If only he loved her half as much as he loved classic cars. Tomorrow then, she persisted. She couldn't ask him over the phone. She needed to look into his eyes and know he wasn't lying when he told her the man banging the prostitute in the video wasn't him. Sorry, nope. Tomorrow I have to pick up whatever we win in the auction. Daz's got the lift truck booked, because he's hoping to pick up one of the repossessed cars they're selling at the auction. A Holden of all things. I've told him he should be looking at classic Fords like my Fairlane, but no, he wants that bloody Holden. I told him it's only the insurance company write-offs that go for a song, and he'll have to pay a premium if he wants the pristine queen of someone's private collection. Pristine queen? An idea began to form in Flavia's mind. What do you mean? He's got his eye on this Sandman. Beautiful car for a Holden. Seized by the police on her maiden voyage, speeding down the freeway. I bet the owner's pissed. Outside the paint's red as the devil when he's wet, and under the bonnet, shit, the devil himself would cream at the power. Brand new everything, and the sound of that engine, the vibration alone makes chicks' clothes fall off. James snorted. Every man under 50 will want that baby, and the bidding will go sky high. Ha, I bet a few babies have been conceived in the back of that panel van big enough to stretch out in. It's a shagging wagon for sure. Alloy wheels, custom paint job, exhaust that you'll feel in your bones before you hear it. As James waxed lyrical about a car Flavia couldn't care less about, her mind drifted into the realm of possibilities. Auctions, bidding wars and maidens. It was perfect. How'd your pub crawl go last week? She blurted out. Did it go off with a bang, like you said it would? Silence for a moment. Finally James said, You mean the one for Davo? I left early. I wasn't feeling the best, so I had one drink, but I went home after the first pub. On Sunday, he'd said he couldn't come over because he'd had a hangover from drinking too much. Flavia smelt a rat. One who wore James' favorite deodorant. Oh. One of the guys at the gym said he saw you with them pretty late. He said you were all drunk. James hesitated for much too long before he let out a shaky laugh that sounded forced. Nah, I was sick. Flu. Liar. When James had the flu, he always called her to take care of him. His flu bouts never lasted less than a week. The bastard had slept with that prostitute, and now he was lying to her about it. Flavia opened her mouth to spit out her accusation. Anyway, gotta go, V, or I'll be late to the auction. See you next weekend, maybe. James ended the call without waiting for her to say goodbye. All good riddance. If James wanted an auction, she'd give him one. A bidding war from every man under 50? Bring it on. She'd make his precious cars look cheap by comparison. 4. Jason climbed into the helicopter, feeling a momentary pang when he remembered the last time he'd flown with Fung. The pilot had told him there was no sex allowed in the helicopter. Well, fuck it, Jason decided. One day he was going to have sex in a fucking helicopter. He was a member of the Mile High Club many times over. That meant special privileges or some shit like that. Fucking helicopter sex at the least. But not with Fung, and not with the pilot either. Morning, Mr. Felix, Cho said easily over his shoulder. Urgent business on the mainland today? Yeah. Need to buy eggs. It's not Easter without chocolate. Cho laughed. What, the Easter Bunny doesn't stop at Romance Island Resort? You should get that hot hotel manager to look into it. If anyone can persuade a busy bunny to rearrange his schedule, it's her. Hot hotel manager? Did he mean Zahn? No rabbits allowed at the resort. The island's an A-class reserve. No pets. Jason stared moodily out the window at the lagoon as they rose above the tree canopy. Pity. I'd pet her though. Sho jerked his chin at the lagoon where someone was swimming. Have you seen her in a bikini? Jason shifted in his seat, unable to stop the image that came to mind. Zan looking hot as hell in a clinging, wet bikini on her veranda. Yeah, she had bigger boobs than he usually liked, but for a moment there, he'd seriously considered. She took me for a snorkeling tour in the lagoon last week. It was hard to keep my eyes on the fish, let me tell you, the pilot continued as he arced around, setting a course for Broome. Mercifully, he shut up about Zan to talk to the tower at Broome Airport about his flight plan. A writhing snake awoke in Jason's belly. How come the hotel manager had taken the helicopter pilot for a tour of the lagoon, but never offered him one? He was the owner of the hotel, for fuck's sake. Shouldn't he be the first to get up close and personal with the fish? The fish. Not the frigid manager with the big boobs. She definitely wasn't his type. What was the pilot saying? There's a chocolate beer at the brewery? Jason interrupted. Sort of. It's a dark lager, but it tastes like chocolate. Stop by while you're in town and have a taste. You'll want more, I swear. Sho laughed. Good thing it's still the wet season. You're my only passenger today, so if you bring back a couple of cases, there's plenty of room in my baby for good beer. He patted the Did you still call it a dashboard when it was a helicopter and not a car? Whatever. Now Sho was stroking it. Jason shrugged. We'll see. Easter eggs and chocolate beer might make for a good Easter weekend. Better than spending it with family. All that sympathy and pity over being fooled by Fung, or at least that's how Jo had put it when she'd insisted he come home for Easter. Mum would worry about him. Dad would mutter something about Sharon Stone and redback spiders, like he usually did when Jason so much as hinted at romantic commitment. All three of them had pleaded for him to return to Perth for the Easter weekend. No fucking way. He'd spend the time alone on his private island paradise with Zan the manager, who was infinitely better company, because she didn't have a sympathetic bone in her body. Nothing cheered him up as much as getting her riled. She was so easy to piss off too. All he had to do was pass out drunk somewhere public. He'd take a fight over pity any day. Maybe he should get her something for Easter. Something for all the staff working the long weekend. After he'd been to the pub though. Chocolate would melt quickly in this tropical heat. The helicopter landed, and Jason headed to the counter to collect the keys to his ride. As he closed the door of his hire car on the humidity, he paused to wonder why he had such bad luck in love. First Angel, then Audra, then Fung. Was he just fucked when it came to women? He could have anyone he wanted for a night, but for more than that, what the fuck was wrong with wanting happily ever after? Didn't rock stars deserve it? Didn't he fucking deserve it? All the chicks in books got happy endings. Why not him? Maybe Zan was right. He needed to find a virgin. He snorted. What was he supposed to do, find some chick who'd never had sex, say, "Hi, I'm J. Felix Rock God. Want to come back to my place so I can pop your cherry?" He'd never looked for a virgin before. Never wanted to, either. Oh, he'd had his fair share of them, but they definitely weren't his favorite. Girls were nervous before their first time and clingy afterwards, neither of which were his style. Nah. Zan couldn't be right. Not with all the other crazy stuff she thought. She told him to drink less and to stop skinny dipping in the lagoon. Both stupid ideas. What was the point in owning an island in paradise if you couldn't get drunk and swim naked whenever you wanted? But to get drunk he needed alcohol, and the best place to get beer was a brewery, so that's where he headed. Jason strode through the beer garden without looking at anything but his destination, the bar. Anywhere else held memories he didn't want to revisit right now. Soon he had a pint of what looked like Guinness but smelled like chocolate in his hand. It slid down his throat like, well, liquid chocolate. Or beer. Because it was both, he set the empty glass on the counter and called for another. The second went almost as fast as the first. It was hot, Jason reasoned, and a man needed to drink a lot to keep from dehydrating. Or melting. Or something. That's why he needed another pint. Cold and smooth and weird how the beer tasted like chocolate. Better have another one to make sure. Why was he here again? Jason peered blearily at the menu board above the bar, but the colored chalk swirls blurred into an unreadable mess. He signaled to the barman. I need to, make it 3 cases of this stuff to take home. In my car. Helicopter. He pondered a moment. Didn't Easter have 4 days? No. 4 cases of beer. Don't want to run out. He drained his glass. And 1 more for the road. All too soon, he clunked another empty pint glass on the bar mat. Jason wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and squinted at the stacked boxes beside him. If you're ready to go, mate, I'll help you carry these out to the car, the barman said cheerfully, tipping his trolley up. 8 dozen bottles of beer clinked in their boxes. Music to Jason's ears. Yeah, Jason said, pointing out the door. Car's out there. He ambled down the veranda steps, while the barman wheeled his beer down the ramp. A short time later, when the boxes were secure in the boot of Jason's hire car, he climbed into the driver's seat and fumbled for his keys. You sure you're all right to drive, mate? The barman asked. Jason waved a flippant hand. No worries. I only had a couple. But he wasn't part of a couple anymore, his brain registered foggily. Or even a band. He was a single. The first time he came to this pub he'd been mobbed by girls, but today not a single one had approached him. See how far he'd fallen. From married rock god to lonely loser. Fuck that for a joke. The car's engine roared under his lead foot, as ready to leave the pub behind as he was. The tide was out in Roebuck Bay, bearing creamy sand as smooth as a hot chick's chest. Fuck, he needed to find some action soon if even the bloody beach got him turned on. The supermarket. 5, maybe 10 minutes in the supermarket and he'd be sorted. That's all it would take before some girl's eye would get that excited spark of recognition as she realized she was in the presence of a rock god. That one spark was all he needed, no fan could resist his rockstar charms. He'd take her to a hotel room here on the mainland and give her a night she'd never forget. Fuck yeah. If only he could forget Fung as easily. The sweet, frightened girl whose smile lit up his world, or the calculating killer, waiting for her chance to take his life and everything he owned? If she hadn't confessed to the police, he never would have believed it. But now. What was that weird chiming noise? Was there a vibrator in his pocket? How the hell did he get a phone? Oh yeah, there was mobile phone access in town. He'd forgotten his own ringtone, it had been so long since he'd heard it. He cleared his throat, channeling deep and sexy. Hello? Finally. Jay, it's Victoria. Why won't you answer your phone? I've had every major label hammering me day and night to sign you. Band, solo artist, they don't care. All they want is Jay Felix. He'd never been so happy to hear the band manager's voice. His heart leaped, and nosedived. The world might think they wanted Jay Felix, but what they really wanted was Angel's music. He was just the front man, the face of the band. Stupid and useless and easy prey for black widows. I don't know. How did his voice come out sounding so weak and weedy? What do you mean, you don't know? Have you found a new agent? Is that what it is? Victoria's voice rose in panic. No, I just can't write songs. Don't think I'm good enough for a solo career. Can't perform without Angel, my muse, telling me backstage she'll kick my ass if I mess up. Can't sing about love when my life's going to shit. A police siren arced up behind him, so loud he couldn't hear what Victoria was saying anymore. Jason glanced in his rear vision mirror, wondering what the idiot had done to be caught by the police. Only, there was no other car to be seen except the police car. Both the driver and passenger were gesturing for him to pull off the road. What the fuck? He wasn't even speeding. Sighing, he slowed to a stop and watched the cop approaching his window. "Gotta go," he said curtly, ending the call before Victoria could say goodbye. "Sir, could you please?" The policewoman stopped and took off her sunglasses. "Oh, it's you." Not the spark of recognition he wanted, but Jason knew how to use it to his advantage. He looked her up and down. There was something seriously hot about a woman in uniform. Especially one with handcuffs. "Having second thoughts, are you? I mean, you did have me handcuffed to a bed last time we met. I won't say no to a little kink with the right woman." Jason winked and was rewarded with her faint blush. "I mean, it's not like I've done anything wrong here." He gestured at the dashboard. "Nothing wrong," she sputtered. "You were driving erratically on the wrong side of the road, talking on your mobile phone. And is that, are you drunk?" "Nope," he replied cheerfully. This didn't seem to faze her in the slightest. "I'm going to breath test you anyway. You won't get away with drink driving like you did last time." Minutes passed while Jason blew dutifully into the breathalyzer, then repeated the test as the policewoman's brows knitted together. "Happy now?" he drawled. "Absolutely. I wanted to be certain. You have just lost your license for the next 6 months, and when the office processes all this, you'll get another 5 months after that. It could be a year before you're allowed on the streets again." "What?" Jason yelped. "But I'm not drunk. I only had a couple of bottles. Says here that you're 0.082, well over the legal limit. If you like, I can take you to the hospital and let them do a blood test." "Blood?" No, he'd faint. Or throw up. Or both. Rock gods didn't have shameful secrets like being afraid of the sight of blood. "If I agree to go on just the breath test, will you use those handcuffs on me tonight?" He threw in a lazy smile to underline the invitation. Instead of responding, she continued tapping the tablet in her hands as her face reddened. Inwardly, Jason cheered his victory. He knew she had a thing for him. There. 3 fines. 1 for driving under the influence of alcohol, well over the legal limit. 1 for using your mobile phone while driving. And a 3rd fine for not wearing a seatbelt. She triumphantly thrust the papers at his face. "Talking on the phone's illegal now?" He snatched the fines and scanned them. "And it's 60 merit points? How is talking worse than speeding?" "It's not. But with the long weekend coming up, you get double demerit points. So instead of just the dozen you'd get on a normal day, today you get 2 for the price of 1. It's not Easter yet. It's just a normal Friday. Check your calendar, Mr. Felix. The first weekend in March is the Labor Day weekend here. The double demerit period started at midnight last night, like always. You're in Western Australia now." She looked far too smug. "So your plan is to take me to the police station, give me a nice cozy little cell, and keep me captive for the whole long weekend?" From her shocked expression, Jason decided he'd guessed right. He winked. "Bring it on, baby. A bit of kink never hurt anyone. Sounds like a fun weekend. I hope you're wearing hot lingerie under that uniform though, because if I'm going to submit to a policewoman dominatrix, you'd better make it worth my while." She turned on her heel and walked away without a word. Jason rubbed his hands together. One of his fantasies coming true, that was definitely worth losing his license. He could afford to hire a chauffeur to do his driving for him. "Please get out of the car, sir, and give me the keys." Jason stared at the male police officer. "Now, I was just discussing that with your colleague over there. I'd prefer to speak to her." The man laughed. "Yeah, Nelson said that. She also said that you're the first offender who's made her want to deliver a bit of police brutality. So I'm going to use a bit of officer's discretion and give you a lift to the airport, where you can hop on a plane out of here, or you can come with us back to the police station where we'll put you in the cooling-off cell. You can spend the whole weekend surrounded by all the vomiting drunks we pick up over the next 3 days, before she calls the media to tell them who we have in the cells." "Fuck that. Helicopter. "I have a helicopter waiting at the airport to take me back to my island," Jason snapped. "Well, aren't you lucky? A word to the wise then, mate. You might want to stay on that island for a while until Constable Nelson simmered down. The Cape Levesque road's her beat, so staying off the mainland's your best bet to keep your balls, mate. Not that I told you that." Grumpily, Jason shoved his keys at the police officer and climbed out. The policewoman wanted him, he knew it. Not his fault she was too shy to take him up on his offer. Jason maintained his grumpy silence for the short drive to the airport, the wait for Show the pilot to get back from lunch, and the trek across the tarmac to the waiting helicopter. Luckily, he still had the beer. He could get properly drunk later on the stuff. Fuck Easter eggs when you could have chocolate beer. "Pissed off the police in town, have you?" Zahn greeted him as his shoes thumped onto the resort's helipad. Jason shot her a sour look. "How the fuck did you find out?" "Naomi called and said she'd booked you drink driving. I get that you're upset over losing your wife, but you can't go getting drunk in the middle of town first thing in the morning, then drive past the police station and not expect to get caught. Much though I hate to say it, you're better off doing that here until you're not so depressed and—" Sympathy. He could take anything but that. "I am not upset or depressed or feeling any fucking thing at all to do with that lying, murdering bitch. I went to town for a drink and a fuck because I'm a fucking rockstar and that's what rockstars do for fun." Zahn snorted. "Well, Mr. Rockstar, looks like you'll have to find some different fun to keep you occupied." That wouldn't be a problem. He had a whole island almost entirely to himself aside from a few hotel staff, until peak season started and the place would be full of guests again. Boredom and rockstars was like rockstars and celibacy. It just didn't happen. Not in Jay Felix's world. Between his money and his body, Jay could get anything he wanted. Or so he thought.